Hi everyone, this is Barbara Beckman here, and today I'm going to be showing you how I use my Gelli plate to make prints. And I had in mind something that I wanted to do. I love like old-fashioned paper dolls and paper piecing. I've been doing that for several years. I also have experience with quilting, but I am a painter. That's what I traditionally love to do, and that's what I do for a living. So I like to incorporate a lot of different things that I love to do. I love arts and crafts. I've been doing it forever. I don't remember not doing it since I was a child. So I try to incorporate all the different loves that I have and just be creative and come up with something different and new. I did draw out an angel, and I knew I was going to do her ahead of time before I started actually working with the Gelli plate here. So this is where I'm doing some skin color tones, just so I would have something for her face and her chest area and her hands, anything that would be exposed. So I drew her out ahead, and I kind of was thinking along the way of what I wanted some of the colors to be. Like I wanted her to be wearing something that was blue, maybe some purples in it. So that's kind of what I just jotted down on the side on a piece of paper so I wouldn't forget as I was doing this. I made a bunch of them. I spent a good probably hour, maybe a little bit longer, just throwing together a bunch of different colors. I like contrast when I do my Gelli plate. I like to have a lot of colors that don't necessarily go together. I like to be dramatic and to just see a lot of light and dark. I like the play of the paint of when it doesn't really go together, you wouldn't see it together. And I come up with some really interesting prints when I do that. Of course, I also use things that go together nicely because I love like pink and orange together. There's things I certainly love together, and I make a lot of those too. So I just play around with whatever I have on hand, whatever stencils I can reach quickly. I didn't have any particular stencils in mind. I recently changed my art room around, and my stencils are in 12 by 12 plastic containers. I own a lot of them, so they're stackable, and I just grabbed whatever was on the top stack, whatever I could reach quickly. It doesn't matter what you have. You can use kitchen utensils, you can use anything that's not going to make a mark in your Gelli plate, basically, because you don't want to mark this up at all, because it will be there forever. The good thing about this Gelli plate is if you do mark it up, you can flip it around and use the other side. So if you have a learning curve and you make some mistakes and you make some marks in it, you just flip it over, not a big deal. I know there's a lot of recipes on YouTube on how to make the Gelli plate, and I have never tried it. They're pretty inexpensive, I find, and they sell them now at AC Moore, or they did this year. I'm not sure if they still carry them. I haven't really seen them that much, but you can use a coupon there, 50% off, and you can get a nice Gelli plate for like $9. I buy mine from Dick Blick online. I find those to be great prices, and they also have a lot of different shapes and sizes, so that's where I tend to go if I need them. This particular one is very old. It doesn't look stained or old probably to you in the photograph because I'm crazy and I clean it like a nut. I just love to use the Gelli plate, so I try to keep it nice and clean when I'm done, and I return it to its original package also. That's another thing, just to protect it. Like I said, I do love to play with it, so I want to make sure it lasts a while. I don't know what their average lifespan is, but mine's several years old and it's still going strong, and I use it quite a bit. I also use rubbing alcohol to get the last bits of paint off when I'm done for the night. And then I don't push so hard. I use just a paper towel to kind of like just wipe it in and get some of the globs off. And then if I still see like a residue, I don't hesitate to take it to the sink and just rinse it off with like water, just lukewarm water. It's never hurt it before. It comes out nice and clean. I really don't dry it because I don't want to mark it. I'm like so afraid I'm going to mark it. So I don't really dry it. I just return it a little, wet. It has spots on it from water. It's not a big deal. It dries perfectly fine. But I return it right to its original packaging, and I store it on a shelf, and it's ready for the next time I go. So here I'm using some yellows and pinks together with some of the stencils I have, and I'm just very carefree. I'm just going along quickly. There's no rhyme or reason. It's really just a lot of play at this point. So after I spend quite a bit of time just playing with different stencils that I grabbed or different things I found around the house to throw on here, I had quite a large stash here of prints, a lot to choose from. So what I'm doing now is I'm just basically separating them by color. So, you know, the yellowy green ones go to one side, the purple blues, whatever the primary color seems to struck my eye first, that's what pile I put it into. It just helps when I'm starting to construct whatever I'm working on. And this one was going to be my angel. So it just helps to have the patterns together. Sometimes I'll have two that look alike or similar, so it's easy to just find them when I separate them like this. So as you can see, I did a lot of them, a lot of pinks and purples, always keeping in mind, you know, what project I was working on. I knew I wanted something bright. So here, there's one that's dry, several hours later, and what I'm doing now is just taking some stencils, and I have a makeup sponge that I get at the dollar store for $1. There's a bunch of them in a bag. I don't even know how many, 25, 30 of them. They're great. They're $1, and I wash them out and they last forever. You can certainly throw them out because they're only $1. So I just use those to quickly go around and add some more depth to my prints. Just kind of gives me another layer, and I don't have any rhyme or reason. Again, I just randomly go and grab any different paints that I grab here and place them, looking for contrasts. Again, looking just for lights and darks against each other, or colors that might not necessarily go together. I also take the opportunity to use the sponge, and I'll go around any white areas showing on the edge. I'll just quickly run the sponge up and get some paint on there as well, so I'm not wasting any of the cardstock. So this is a lot of fun. It goes very quickly, and I use whatever stencils that I used to make the prints in the first place. You can add some other ones in as well. Whatever you have, just very loose and carefree. I also try to use the same color palette that I use throughout, just so they kind of all go together. So this particular stash I know I'll be working on one project with. So all of these will work together no matter what design I come up with. So here's a little preview of the sketch that I came up with. I just used a piece of paper that I grabbed off the shelf. It's a 12 by 12 scrapbook paper, and it's pink. So I just grabbed whatever I could grab. I was hoping you could see it if I filmed it, but I just basically drew out my angel, and I just wasn't really sure where I was going with it. She just kind of came out of nowhere, I guess. That's kind of sometimes what I do. So I do a lot of erasing here. It was nice because these plastic erasers work well against this scrapbook paper that I have. I guess that's why I tend to grab them. So I'm just kind of blocking in her arms and her dress, and I wanted her to be like praying hands. And it went along quickly. I changed it a couple times, but I had an idea in my head that I wanted to do. So that's basically what I'm doing at this point. So I did this the day before. It's just that actually the way I'm piecing the video together, it looks like I did the jelly plates printing first, but I drew her out first and then with what I drew out and what I had in mind in my head, that's what I decided what colors to be using when I made my prints. So what I did here is after I drew the angel out and I was happy with her, I take tracing paper, and this is where I go ahead and I make my patterns. I also flipped through because I knew I wanted that back like halo or moon or whatever's behind her head. It's a halo actually. I knew I wanted it to be that orange and pinky color. So I just traced it out with a cup that was sitting here, and it fit perfectly. And there we go. So that was the first piece. So now I'm just tracing. I'm using the top right side of the tracing paper because I'm going to utilize all the tracing paper, but I'm going to just go along and give her cut out pieces. So I'm going to start with her hair, and this will be my template. So I'll use these to make mine, and then what I do is I go ahead and I make kits and templates that you can download if you wanted to. So you would just print it out and you could follow along. Be the exact same size, or you could size it yourself on your computer and make it smaller or larger depending on what you wanted to do with it. So that's why you see me tracing it out and blocking things in different shapes step by step. So you can certainly change things along the way. This just gives you a general template. And what I did here is I did her whole body shape because sometimes I like to put it on a thicker piece of like cardstock, and then I'll glue that whole piece of her body once I pieced it together down onto whatever project I'm working on. I didn't do that with this one, but I still certainly like to have it in with my templates. So here I am just tracing along the template that I cut out for her hair. So the next couple of scenes here, that's what you're going to be seeing is to do this and show it in its entirety would take a long time. So I sped it up and I just kind of pieced the video together so you could see where I did different parts of it. If you were to purchase the download, you would actually get access to the longer video version of this where you could see step by step. Sometimes people get confused and they really want to go step by step exactly with you, and that's certainly fine. But this just basically gives you an overall idea of how I did it. It's not that difficult to do. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like the old-fashioned paper dolls. I like to do paper piecing. I've been doing that since I was a little girl, making dolls and playing. It's like color forms. I loved color forms and stuff like that. So that's kind of what it reminds me of, is I just like to draw different characters and make pieces of them together and cut them out. You can also turn them and flip them the other direction so you can have the angel going the other way. I also have an 8-year-old daughter who's very creative, and she likes to watch me. And what I like to do is print them out for her and let her try to make paper dolls on her own, because that's really how I started. I had 2 elderly aunts who helped raise me. They lived with me when I was a little girl, and they used to draw things out for me all the time, and they were horrible. they couldn't draw, but you know what? They kept me busy, and I love to be creative. And that's kind of, I think, where the love came from, is the paper dolls and the color forms from when I was a small child. So that's really what it's like, is you just kind of piece them together until you get your overall design. So I was really fortunate to have a lot of different choices to choose from. A lot of these prints I thought came out really well. Don't forget now, I had the Gelli, the prints that I made from the Gelli plate, and then when they were dry, I went over them again with some stencils. So there's a lot of different layers and textures on there. And I added some gold to a couple of them because I was thinking that the angel that I had in my head that I wanted to put down on paper, I wanted her to be very whimsical, and I wanted her to be very angelic, and I wanted her maybe to have a touch of gold in her wings or the halo or somewhere on there. I was trying to think of like heaven and just, you know, a guardian angel watching over me. So right now what I was doing is picking out pieces of paper that I'm going to place in the background, and I'm just sketching out her wings here, and I've decided to make those like a greenish yellow color. In the background, I really liked that paper that had that kind of like that ivy or greenery. It was kind of bluish green. You'll see it in a second here coming up. So I thought that it was good contrast between that and the wings. That's why I chose the two. And I had enough paper with that ivy kind of feeling to cover the background. So that's why I chose it. So I just play around with placement and see what works. I can move things around. It doesn't have to be exactly as that picture is. I changed her slightly. It's just an overall idea, or it is a template, but it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. That's the best thing about it. So I've picked out these background pieces that I thought would go really well with her, and I'm just using Aleene's tacky glue, and there's actually some water in it, which is what made it so runny there. Just a little bit, because what happens is I clean the bottle top because it gets so sticky with glue that sometimes I get a little bit of water inside, and actually I realized that a long time ago that watering down the glue a little bit actually is better. It's easier, it sticks better, it dries quicker, it just works a lot nicer. So you can always add a little bit of glue to a dish and add a little bit of water in it. So it's kind of like a runny Elmer's glue. So I'm just piecing together different papers that I have, and I just eyeball it with a pencil, and then I cut with a scissor. I can always trim up the paper when it's all done and dry from the back end. And that's what I end up doing. So if it goes over the edges, it's not a big deal here. So what I also did was, see, I have that scrap piece of paper now. So I'm going to glue this one piece down on the top right, and it's got more yellow and purples in it, where the first paper I put down doesn't really have any of those colors in it, but it still had that same ivy kind of feeling, which is why I chose it. So because the Gelli plate is so random, you're not going to get two pieces that are exactly alike. So I wanted something that would work well together. It does have a seam. I see it right there, and I can hide that with different things that I can place over it. So you can see in the end I really did a good job of hiding it. So that extra piece that I cut off, I'm going to cross-pollinate the colors, and I'm going to use that down on the left side. And why I cut that there is it's kind of hard to explain it. I don't know if I'll explain it too well, but I knew that I would have her laying down on the piece of paper. So there could be some white showing where I'm going to cover it with a piece of paper any second right here. And I needed to reserve that paper for the right side. So I didn't want to run out of paper, so that's why there is a space there. I used that leftover piece that I had from the first cut on the second paper that I put up in the top right. So I put that spare piece of paper down on the left. I kept a space, and then I used that extra piece of paper to the right, so that color was kind of cross-pollinating all over. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking some white and a little bit of pink, and I'm trying to do like a misty kind of color. It's very, very light and thin. I watered it down on the sponge. These sponges, again, from the dollar store, are wonderful. They're so inexpensive, and they are easy to hold. They feel good in your hands, and they create a lot of different effects. So I'm trying to create like a misty kind of what would be around an angel. You know, is she in heaven? Is she hovering over me? Is she, you know, walking through the clouds? So I was trying to just give this kind of misty, kind of feathery, light, airy mist, I guess. I'm guessing it's mist is probably the best word to describe it. So that's what I'm doing here. I chose to put some pink in it just to give it some sort of color as opposed to just the white. It almost looks smoky, but it's very transparent. You can see through it and you can see all those leaves coming up, especially as it dries. So I just do a lot of layering too, over and over. I start out thin and you can always layer over and over again. So I don't know if you understood what I meant before by see, I left those two spaces white, and that's because I knew her body was going to be covering over those, so it didn't matter. I hope I explained that. So now I'm just going to, I take ink. What did I use here? Can't even remember myself. Distressed ink, the small 1x1 squares by Ranger. And what I'm doing is just inking up the edges, and I like to do that because it just gives a little pop of color, and I like to just kind of highlight or outline the edges. And I did that for everything. Like here I'm doing that halo, that orangey part. I think I used an orange and a red. I don't quite remember, but it just changes your color a little bit. It deepens it or brightens it. So that's how I got a lot of these pops of bright colors by this ink. I love this ink. You can put this on with a paintbrush. You can stamp it on. If you add water to this, it has other effects. And I have a lot of other videos that I'll be posting with how I use water and came up with different really cool effects with that. I love using this ink a lot. So I'm just trying to figure out placement at this point. However, also I noticed that her wings looked kind of blah, like I needed something else, some more texture or something. So I don't have a pattern for these. So what I did was once I glued this down, I started to randomly just cut out like feather shapes or suggestions of feathers. So that's what I mean by you can take the pattern and then embellish it on your own. So the pattern would just come with the basic shapes of this angel and her wings. And then if you wanted to add different things, you could certainly do so like I did. It sticks pretty well. I do use a paper towel to blot up anything if it's like coming and oozing over the edges. I'm able to still push it around at this point because it's still quite wet underneath. So if I need to move it, I can. But I blot up any extra glue that might come sipping out. And then I'll use the brayer or a credit card works great too, an old credit card or something that you can push those air bubbles out with. I use an old paintbrush, but honestly, I've grabbed pretty nice paintbrushes by accident, and the glue washes out completely and totally, and I've used the paintbrushes for, you know, real painting, and they've been fine. But if you have an old paintbrush laying around, this is a great thing to use it for. So here I'm placing the wing down. It is a little bit different than the actual pattern or the drawing that I drew, and that's fine. I just chose to have her leaning a little bit more to a different direction. That's what I like about these. Like her face is going to fit exactly into that template. So her face will definitely be nudged in there nicely. But you can change things. Like her hair, I changed her hair. Here it is very smooth and sleek. And in the end, you'll see that I actually made it very wispy. I just cut out some red strips and added them to her hair. So you can change it. So that's what I like about it, is that you have the overall pattern to piece together, but you can certainly change it, and this can make many, many, many different dolls or angels or whatever you have in your mind. You don't have to put wings on her. You could do something else. So it's very versatile. I love that about like a paper doll kind of patterns. And you could turn them the other direction too, so she could be facing the opposite way, or you could have two angels facing each other. Like, you can really do so much with this one little pattern. So I just make sure I give it a good roll to make sure it's all stuck down. You can see it kind of looks more uniform at this point too. Like the background will start to look like one. You won't really notice that I used two totally different papers. Again, I like that random quirkiness of the Gelli plate and how they print. So I just cut out two arms. It just kind of gives it some depth, and I used a different color than what I would use for the dress. And I actually used some of that distressing on top of it too, but they are definitely two different color blues that I cut out from another piece of print that I made. So I wanted her hands to be a little bit like a praying hand. There's not a lot of detail to this. I didn't give her a face or any features. Sometimes I like to just leave her just as she is. I did make the neck area a little darker. I used just a darker piece of the print. So here I was telling you about a little earlier that I cut out these little kind of wing. They're like little letter U's, kind of with like a little letter U on the top. I don't like fish scales. I don't know what they are, but that's the design I came up with. I cut them out very, very randomly and just placed them down. So these are not in the pattern. Like I said, these will be like embellishments and stuff that you add on. And then I thought, let me just add on some at the bottom. You know, I have a parrot, so I'm always used to looking at his beautiful feathers, and the top are very fluffed. And then you have the bottom part of the wing that kind of has these very straight flight feathers. So that's what I was kind of thinking about, is let me add some straight lines to it. And then I didn't want it to look so perfect, so I was trying to be careful not to do that. So here's that cup that I used to make that initial halo in the back. And I thought, let me incorporate some of those shapes somewhere else. And I got to hide some of those seams. So what I did is I traced out that cup, and then I just made a circle around it freehand, bigger. And then what I did was just cut very small strips of that. I made a few of them. So I would have different size circles in a sense. And they're not perfect. You can see that circle is around her head is definitely not perfect circle. I don't like anything perfect. Nothing is perfect in life anyway. And I like the fact that you can see things are definitely hand cut and handmade. That's why I like doing my own embellishments. Like, I'm a big scrapbooker too, and I love like the Jolies and different things like that. But I love making my own. I make my own more than I buy them. You know, if in a pinch I have to do a page for somebody or something, I'll buy them. But for the most part, I make all my own embellishments just because I like that handmade quirkiness. I guess because I've been doing it so long since I was a child that I'm just so used to it. So I just made a bunch of circle rings. And like I said, I started with that one circle that I traced around. Here I'm tracing another one with the glue. Actually, there was enough glue on the bottom that left an imprint of the glue, so I was able to just go around it. But I just made a couple of circles, and I really didn't have a direction at this point. I just knew I wanted to incorporate. See, I'm picking up anything. Here's some ribbon. Anything I could just trace a circle around very quickly. So I had no direction. I just knew I thought it'd be kind of neat to take that same orangey paper that was behind her head and use it somewhere else, since I loved it so much. I love that they had some greens in it, some of that turquoise and some blues. So I wanted to use that paper. Kind of makes it all go together too. It went together pretty quickly, I have to say. I didn't have any stress about it. I was just playing, and I didn't have to glue them down if I didn't like it. I just placed them down first to see where I would like them, and once I had somewhat of an idea, then I started to glue them down. So that's what I'm doing here. I was trying to think of like another world or a different place. Where would she be? You know, is she in heaven? Is she in some dimension that I don't know about? Is she in between worlds? Like, I was trying to just picture in my head this beautiful place full of color and, you know, uncertainty. We don't know where she is, but I wanted her to feel very protective and very safe, and that's what I was trying to achieve, something very calming and tranquil. She has a great sense of peace about her. So I just play. It's all about play, just having fun. The brayer is great. If you don't have one, that's what I suggest, because sometimes the credit cards can get stuck on a piece of paper if you don't have it down all the way. So by using the brayer, you really get a good, you get some good pressure down on that paper, so it really sticks really well. I never have a problem with it coming back up. You get all the air bubbles out. I have some scrap paper underneath it there. You can see some of the gold on that one, which I'll probably use on a project eventually. But I keep some paper underneath just in case, so it doesn't just like glue the pages together. So now I've decided I was going to use the cutter here and cut out some 1-inch strips. And I'm just cutting off the white edges here before I go ahead and cut some strips out. I was looking for like a harlequin kind of pattern. That was kind of something that was stuck in my head, and I thought I would incorporate some of those pinks that were in her feathers somewhere. I like to call that cross-pollinating, taking a color from one place and putting it somewhere else, just to give some sort of balance to the picture. So I'm always thinking about balance and composition and what works well and what looks good. So you just play around with it. I also inked those up, and I used some of the greens actually, because there was a lot of greens in the background, and it just happened to look nice. I used some blues, I used some of the oranges, I used a little bit of everything. I didn't use all of them. I'll keep them for another project. I only used a few of them, but I wasn't sure if I would, so I just inked up a bunch of them. So I placed them here and there. I like to have that harlequin look, and I like to skip them too. So, you know, you just don't have them back to back to back. So it's kind of like very random in places, and then other places you see 3 or 4 together. So once I have them all set, kind of set in my head where I'm going to go with them, I just use my finger with a little glue and press them down. So I'm liking what I see, and I decide I'm going to seal it at this point. So I use some Mod Podge, and I use the matte one. They have matte and they have a very high gloss, but for this one I've decided I'm going to use the matte one. I use a generous amount. I just pour a glob on there. You know what, if I overdo it, I can always open up a journal book and put some of these papers down in another book. So I don't mind pouring it out, it's just easier. So it will have like a haze to it, and when it dries, it'll dry clear. Now I'm using some alcohol markers. These are Spectrum Noir, but I use Copic markers. Any kind of alcohol markers will do. And I'm just trying to add some more color to different areas. So I decided I wanted to brighten up the wings and add a little bit more yellow. So that's what I'm doing here, is just going over and brightening up some areas. I like too that there's paint on it, obviously, that I used for the plate. And when I take the alcohol markers and I hit some of those painted areas, it changes the color. So it gives a lot of different like texture, I guess, and not texture that you feel, but texture as far as looking at, like different dimensions, different depths. So that's why I tend to use the alcohol markers on some of the prints when I'm completely done. So what I decided to do is just darken up some of the areas where the shadows might be, like under her arms, or in between these little wings, or underneath where the feathers are before they hit those longer flight feathers. So I'm just darkening up some areas that I think will make a difference. Now I had some Wink of Stella that I got in one of my I Do Art Snacks, which is like a subscription that comes once a month. And in one of the boxes came this white, which I hadn't used before, and I couldn't see it at all. I couldn't see it at all. It was like totally not there, so I didn't really know how much was coming out. And when it dried, I could really see it, and it was kind of cool. I didn't mind. But you can see where I added some more to her hair. I brightened her up a little bit in some areas. I love it. Overall, I think it came out really well. It's fun. It's exactly kind of what I had in my head. I love the vibrancy of the colors. It's just a happy collage paper angel. I think these look great in frames. They are also great to take photos of and make prints out of. So a lot of people buy my prints because they're just so bright and vibrant. So I hope you give this a try. This was super fun. There's so many different things you can do by just piecing together your prints and play. Just fun. Have fun and play. Look in magazines, get ideas. You know, you can look at a photograph of anything, a bird, and just get the overall idea and shapes, and then come up with different creations on your own. And you know, birds could be any color. They don't have to be what you see in true life. They can be these crazy wild prints that you make with your Gelli plate. So I hope you all give it a try. I hope you have fun creating. Just have a good time. That's what it's about. It's kind of just forgetting about the stresses of life in the world and enjoying just, you know, being one with the paint and creating what's inside you wanting to needing to come out. So I hope you give it a try, and I hope you like the video, and please leave me comments below if you have any questions. I would love to answer anything, or if you have any comments or suggestions for me, I'm open to anything. That's how I learn. If you see something here I could do better, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you like the video. Please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing a lot more videos like this soon. Thank you so much again, and have a great day.